Welcome to a brand new video of the Target Individual Program, the Target Individual Experience. So, what are the topics of this video? I've been thinking over the weekend, um, what information that we as TIs, targeted individuals, can give to people so that they can really consider what we say, what has been done to us and continue to be done to us, is something that we didn't just make up in our mind. That these things, these programs, these experiments actually happen and continues to happen and will continue to happen in the future if we don't bring attention and awareness to what is going on. And apparently, okay, they are, it is, or I think, guys, sirens in the background, they've been having me under surveillance. We all know that as a TI. But there's a couple of videos that I've been gathering up information to do, and they don't want me to do it. Of course, it is expected because they just don't want to be exposed. Okay. And so this video they don't want me to do because of the sources that I've put together to show you guys that I'll give you guys the information that you can go look at yourself. Okay. So they can no longer play the types of games, well, we don't know, or they will engage in plausible deniability, because we know there's information out there. On top of that, there are people out there who are providing information, but you gotta look for it. Okay. But it's available, we can find it. So all throughout the weekend, I've been relatively quiet. I've been in the house, not really doing anything, haven't really gone outside except for today. But actually I should no, I'm wrong. I actually did. Let's see. I was over by Pam over the weekend, visiting the kids. So let me rephrase that. Been under heavy remote neural monitoring, so my short-term memory is affected by this again. So you gotta excuse me, okay? And it's kind of like their quest to continue to lie and deceive and to say, well, what we've done to these individuals has not affected them greatly in any way, particularly neurologically. This is why they continue to test you, us as TIs, and on our memory capacity and capability. Okay. And so they will use people to ask a series of questions or to leave things out to see if you will fill in the blanks. Okay. And as I've said in the past, I don't need to act as if I don't remember things, because I do want to remember things. It is important that we remember certain things, particularly in the past, because of what they have done. And so they want you to forget about certain things. They only want you to remember what it is that they put into your mind. And so you have to be very careful of what you say, because again, they have put things into your mind that only they know, or what they're telling their snitches or perps or paid actors, paid agents, whatever you may call them. So when you mention certain things, they can say, well, see, we told you, not understanding that they have put things into your mind that you don't know. Okay. And on top of that, we all know that we are covertly manipulated, not just psychologically, but physically, chemically. The use of technology that is used to control people's mind, to condition our mind, such as radio wave frequency based weapon, microwave frequency based weapon for mind control of a person or persons. Okay. And so hopefully you will get to a point where you start to see the manipulation, you start to see their tactics, right? And not fall into the traps, not believe in what they want you to believe, because again, this is to get you to do things that are detrimental to yourself and others. So you have to always remember that. This is why you got to keep your circle small. And unfortunately, us as TIs, we really don't have a per se circle of friends. We may have people we know, people we will call friends, but are they truly our friends because of how they behave towards us, their refusal to believe us or to dismiss what we're saying? And we know on programs such as Quanta Pro here in the United States, such as Zoom in East Germany, that the state or the government have created agencies with departments that are tasked at destroying people's lives, either based on their political affiliation, their activism, the threat, because those in the authoritative position fear the person we're thinking. Particularly in America, they fear particularly black men. And so they will try to criminalize the majority of black men by engaging in covert, manipulative, criminal activities and tactics. They have, brought drugs to get a lot of millions of black people hooked on drugs. It's the U.S. government here. It is very well documented. So now we know. I was watching an interview with one of the Wu-Tang founding members, goes by the name of Method Man, and they were asking a question, and the question was like, what is free will? Do we really have free will? Okay, and many of us like to think that we have free will, particularly those of us who are religious, right? They'll say, well, God give us free will, and we use our own mind to do what we want to do. But yet, in the same breath, they will tell you that when you are born, your life is already planned out for you. So God knows the outcome, So then there goes the question: do we really have free will? Okay. So one of the person that was in that interview, he said, well, our Method Man used the story of, he's like, well, if I'm walking and I gotta go use the bathroom, right, but I don't want to go yet, but I gotta go, there goes your free will, right? because you don't want to go, but your body is telling you you need to go and you got to go right now. It doesn't matter what you think, right? So the person said, well, you choose to eat something that bothers your stomach to where you got to go. But again, that's a illogical statement, okay? Because that has nothing to do with what he was talking about. You know, they got into a pretty deep conversation, and I'm gonna expunge on this a little bit because there's too many things to talk about. I'm not gonna get to talk about all of it in this video, but I'm gonna try to get to as most topic as I can, because you know I wanted to do this video in I want to do just one video, but I may have to end up doing another one. Because again, this is a vast set of information that I have to share with you guys. Okay. But first, you know, I got to give you a talk about my targeting over the weekend and what it is that they've been doing. So they've been using the police siren very aggressively, low volume, okay, particularly monitoring my online activities. And when I was going to do this video, you know, they started with the police sirens again, but now you don't hear them. What you hear now, what I hear is that's what I hear. Okay? At a very low volume. So let me lower this down. And oh, not the right one. Might be too low. Right, there you go. If you hear it, this is what I hear. So it's very low in terms of volume, right? And again, I guess it's just to bypass the awareness of others. But when you've been conditioned to hear certain sounds, it doesn't matter how low it's played, you're going to recognize it, right? Because there's always a distinct sound, okay, or a sound pattern. Excuse me. And so that coupled with also with the low sound of that police siren. Okay. Right. So again, I need to lower that down to a low volume. Might be a little too low. There you go, like that. Okay, so that would be the volume level in which they are using now with the car honking, and the police sirens, right? On top of that, earlier today, getting helicopters. Over the weekend, you know, was the 4th of July. So the fireworks over here was like unbelievable, you know, constant all throughout the night, Friday night, Saturday night, Sunday night, even this morning. Okay. And you see, they always know when I find certain gems, which, you know, I talk about and tell you guys, because, you know, they will start using the sirens when I find particular information. Okay. So, you know, it is what it is. As a TI, we got to learn to live with this programming and this program, and try to do our best to survive, because we know that this is going to be done to us for the rest of our lives. Doesn't matter if you talk about it or not. And I'm going. The only how it may stop is if the truth is revealed. And one thing I know is that those criminals within the security agencies, top law enforcement agencies, they have learned from the past. So to get proof of this, might be a little bit more difficult, not to say impossible, but a little bit more difficult than in the past. But what we have to do, okay, is to find as much documentation so that there will be no doubt. Okay? I don't know if you guys hearing this. What the heck? They look like. They're banging on something. It's like chain or something like that. Anyway. So that when you tell people these things and they say, oh, these things don't exist, you can say, yes, they do. Because a lot of it has to do with their minds being programmed to forget. Okay? I don't know if you guys are hearing this, but it's pretty loud. Somebody's like shaking chains or something. You get a helicopter now. Okay. I have a noise suppression on, so you may not hear it. And I got it to where if I'm about a few feet away from the mic, you're not gonna hear it. So my mouth got to be close to the mic in order to hear it. So you might not hear the noise in the background, but there are helicopters flying around. Okay. So let's begin. But first, let me give a warm clap of hands, trying to make my video a little bit more interesting. Since they like sound effects, I got a couple sound effects too. So, ladies and gentlemen, TI community, those who are not part of the TI community, and you gotta excuse if you hear my word slur. It is, again, the effect of being hit with directed energy weapons, okay? Thank you to all the haters, detractors. Thank you to all those criminals within the law enforcement agencies, the security agencies. Thank you for doing what you do. Because if you didn't do what you did, we wouldn't be able to expose it, to let others know what's really going on. And hopefully, you will get your just reward. And hopefully, it will be in the form of you guys use, okay, being let out of a courtroom in handcuffs for crimes against humanity, for treason, okay, and for the disregard of your oath to the Constitution of the United States. Okay? So, let's continue. You see here is a picture of the Neuralink. It's not really how it looks. It's actually much smaller than that, but that's an image that I found on the web, so I'm using it. Okay? So what we're going to talk about first, okay? We're going to talk about, you guessed it, brain technology, brain implants, as well as conditioning the human mind using microwave radio wave frequency, controlling the human mind using microwave radio technology. We're going to talk about Zertz Zoom. We're going to talk about um, Quanta Pro. We're going to talk about the illusion of choice and free will. We're going to talk about, okay, the use of social media for abuse by the US government, its law enforcement, and security agencies. So it's a lot. I might have left out one or two things, but you know, it's okay. I will get to it if I remember. Okay. So as TIs, when we talk about, hey, we've been implanted with a microchip, people look at us like, you know, we'll either get what makes you so important that the government would do this to you, or we'll get this. Okay, that was crickets, ladies and gentlemen. It is not sonic weapons, as the State Department said or the FBI said, that cause damage, irreversible and serious damage to the U.S. State Department employees, as well as the CIA employees, while traveling abroad, and also here in the United States. This is what they say that these diplomats were hearing. But later on, we found out, no, it wasn't. Okay? And a lot of the same symptoms these diplomats exhibit, we as TIs have exhibited these symptoms and damages decades before. Okay? All right, you hear this noise in the background? Okay, it is, what time is it now? 2:15. Okay? I'm gonna let you guys know something. So I've been up since a little after 9. There was none of this going on. The minute I decided to start to do this video, all of a sudden they start making all this noise outside. So I don't think you guys can hear it because I don't see any activity on my meter to indicate the background noise is being heard. Maybe if you hear it, it's at a very low volume. Okay. All right. Let's get to the first topic. Okay. I just got to make sure I have the right document up. Okay. All right, there we go. Jeez. Unbelievable. Okay. DARPA N3. Next generation approach, excuse me, to brain interface. There's another TI out there, Mysterioso, who first mentioned this to me about, I think it was maybe like 2012, 2011, maybe 2011, 2012. Okay, I'm not quite sure, but I know it was a long time ago, and I've never heard about it before. And I think actually I got this document from her. Okay. DoD problem: able-bodied military personnel cannot use current neural interfaces. So what do they mean cannot use current. And again, you got to go back. I did pull up another article on this. I'm not sure. I might have deleted, but anyway. So, right, current neural interface. Does it mean they had a previous version of this that didn't quite work quite as well? Or is the method of which the device of the neural interface not conducive enough to what they want to do? Okay. Goal: create reliable neural interfaces without the need for surgery or implanted electrodes. Again, I can go back and show you guys, okay, through the research that they experimented on human beings, children also, with the implantation of electrode into the brain of the individuals. Okay. But you see, from since the mid 90s, they've been able to do what is called non-invasive surgery, meaning that they don't have to operate on you. Okay. And there was a study done using nanobots. Okay. I'm not sure if that's the right word, but in which they were able to insert a gel or liquid into the minds of mice and were able to control the mind of those mice. Now, I gotta find that article again. I'm not sure if I still have it up. Well, this noise is horrible. I don't know if you guys are hearing it, but it is horrible. So you want to talk about how they do these things to prevent people from listening to my video? They started until when I started doing this recording to start making this noise. And it is a very annoying sound. Okay. So I don't know if you guys can hear it in the background. I got my window open, but I'm not going to close it. Okay. Because again, this is what they love to do. All right. And so let me see if I can find this document. Not document, but this article. Okay. All right, here we go. Found it. Okay. Let me see. Okay, so I found it. We'll talk about that, but let me first get back to this. Okay, so facilitate multitasking at the speed of thought interface with smart decision aids. Two technical area: invasiveness, example technology, signal quality, TA1, non-invasive, external device, ultrasound, light, RF, magnetic fields, neural on the signal quality, neural ensemble activity. Okay, so this was now TA2, minutely invasive. Listen to this now. Injectable, ingestible, intransnasal, intransnasal, meaning that they can inject whatever device to the brain into your brain through your nasal cavity. So your nasal cavity is a direct passageway that leads to the brain. So they don't gotta operate on you for that. Okay. Now, ingestible. Right? And injectable. Nanotechnology, membrane modification, molecular assembly, single neuron activity. Okay? So listen now. Single neuron activity. Now I talked about this when I talk about how they have, with the brain initiative, they have studied the human brain. They have basically identified every part of the brain, every neuron, and every signal fired off by those neurons. So I talk about, for example, when I look at certain colors, they will use the sirens. For example, if I'm staring at something that's green, all right, let's say I'm washing my hands and I'm wiping my hands with a hand towel and it's green, they will use the police sirens. My bed cover, okay, my comforter is green. Every time I look at it, touch it, they will use the police sirens. Okay? Complete non-invasive neural interface. Objective: create a non-invasive read-write system. Now, what does read-write means? Now, I talk about how in recent decades that you'll hear neurologists, psychiatrists, when they talk about the brain and parts of the brain, they use more computer terminology, okay, to attribute certain functions of the brain, right? So, for example, um, if you when you're reading something, when you're studying, you are writing to the brain, okay? When you are recalling those memories, that what you have learned, it is called reading. So like a hard drive, when you download information, you put on the hard drive, it is writing to the hard drive. Okay? When you are opening up those files, those information, you are reading from the hard drive. Okay? Because again, and I got to put things into certain concepts so people can understand. Your brain is like a computer chip. It is the central processing unit of the human body. Just like a computer chip, all right, our processor, CPU, central processing unit, is the brain of your computer. Okay? Without it, the other parts of the computer cannot function. Okay? So when you understand it in that sense, you can now understand that they can introduce viruses to the brain. Okay? They can infect it, they can hack it, hijack it, control it from external sources. Okay? But I'm a, you know, let me pause the video. Let me see how long they're going to stop with this noise, and then I'll come back on the recording, because again, this information is too valuable and they don't want you to know it or hear it. So this is why they continue with this noise campaign that you see, that you hear, if you hear it. Cause I don't want to end the video just to see if it picks it up, right? So I'm gonna pause the video and I'll come back. Okay, welcome back. So it's been over about an hour and a half now, and I think at this point they've stopped. So we're gonna get back into this video, and let's continue. So completely non-invasive neural interfaces. Objective: create a non-invasive read-write system. Right? Phase 1: develop subcomponent technology, develop system level designs, link margin, power budget, channelization approaches, fabricate subcomponent circuits, sensor, emitters, hardware, characterize subcomponents, resolution and latency performance, access scattering and attenuation, compare to system level design parameters, demonstrate read and write through skull and tissue medium. Phase 2: integrate and validate in vivo. This is vivo. Integrate subcomponent, combine multiple read and write subcomponents into one device. Oh, by the way, when I mention phase 2, what do you think happened? That's what I heard in the background. Okay. Evaluate physical properties, crosstalk, SNR, and safety parameters of integrated device into vivo. Develop algorithms, decode neural ensemble activity, and encode sensory feedback to the brain. Phase 3: refine and demonstrate. Also, just heard the car honk also. Let me just, right? So as I'm speaking, there's a bit of delay because I had to step away for a while and pause the video. So now there's a delay in the audio. So you guys are not going to hear it, but I hear it through my headset. Okay. So phase 3: refine and demonstrate. Characterize refined system, meet metrics for bidirectional system, refine algorithms, achieve lower system latency, demonstrate system capabilities, decode motor and cognitive signals and encode sensory feedback. Design DoD relevant final demo. Example, simultaneously perform multiple tasks. So in-field proof of concept, and they've been doing in-field proof of concept for decades, okay? Let me say this. In 2001, okay, so, no, sorry, 2002, my first son was born in 2001. And early 2002, this was in the first quarter, his mother and we took him to one of the islands, Barbados. One night, I was hanging out with a few people and kind of wanted to go home. So I got a ride home. Well, at the place I was staying at. But on the way, I stopped by the beach. Within a few minutes, I was in the vehicle, still in the vehicle, and something just said, "Look up." And as I look, not look up, but I look out the passenger side, and there was a road. And at the exact moment that I looked at this road, a vehicle stopped in the middle of the road. A person got out and walked off. Now, I didn't think about it back then because I wasn't I didn't believe. Well, I wasn't aware of my targeting. My brother was targeted, but he wouldn't talk about it, so I had no idea. So when I start to remember certain things, that I realized that I was targeted way before I became aware of my targeting. Okay? And that was just one example that when I think back, that happened. That was very, very strange. But now I know why. Okay? All right. TA1, non-invasive metrics. Phase 1, read and write subcomponent. Spatial resolution, 1 millimeter to the third. Temporal resolution, less than 10 millisecond. It's ms, millisecond. Millimeter. Stability, continuous operation for greater than or equal 2 hours. Accuracy, read and write. Correlation to ground truth, accuracy. I don't know even why I said it like that. When you're tired, it's like, So, greater than or equal to 95%. Okay? So basically, it's like when they're sent, particularly if you're a TI, you've been implanted, when they're sending you instructions to go somewhere and you show up, okay, and what they'll do is that they'll have a person or people at the destination that they've commanded you to go. But again, you don't understand that it's a command. You're thinking that it's your mind, your own mind, your true mind, that is coming up with the idea of going to that particular destination. But when you get there, there will be agents there to make sure that you've arrived, and they will go and give feedback to whoever they need to go to say, yes, this person showed up. I talk about this in earlier on in my targeting. That I used to get up on a Saturday, every other Saturday, go into the city, go to Barnes and Noble on 14th Street, and as I approached the Barnes and Noble, there would be a person or two people, usually white men. Well, not usually. They all were all white men, and they would give me the thumbs up as I approached the entrance to go in. And then after a couple months, of me becoming aware, then I stop going. After I get that urge, that thought pattern, that command, I stop going. And at the end of that day, the end of that Saturday, well, I shouldn't say the end of the day, but in the afternoon, like about maybe 3 hours, 4 hours later, they would send their police, the fire trucks, would drive by with their sirens loud, okay, engaging in noise campaign. And it still happens from time to time, but most of the time I'm pretty completely aware and conscious of what my mind is saying, so that I don't go where I don't really need to go. Right? So you always got to question yourself when it comes to certain things, particularly if you are aware of what is being done, and I mean truly and really aware. Okay. So phase 2, integrated device safety. Less than or equal to 1% Celsius rise in tissue volume being read from, written to. And when you talk about, that's temperature, right? That's temperature. That's the heating of your tissue, your biological tissues. Okay? So closed loop system latency, less than 100 milliseconds. Control signal greater than or equal to 3 DOF. And DOF, I'm not sure what that is. It could be depth of field in terms of vision, but I'm not sure. Maybe you'll explain it as I go through the other charts. Okay, so sensory signal greater than or equal to, I should say be less than, and that's less than equal to 3, not greater than. 3 categories: example, detection, alarm, integrated device size greater than or equal to 125 centimeter. What's that? Well, that's the exponent 3, right? So I know there's if it's 2 is square, centimeter square, it's 3 is I can't remember. But anyway, it just means that you with the exponent, so it would be like 125 times 125 times 125, right? That's to the 3rd power. Okay, so channel count, read channels, volumes, etc., etc. All right. So let's go to phase 3. Final system, closed loop, system latency greater than 50 milliseconds. Control signal less than or equal to 6 DOF. Sensory signal less than or equal to 6 categories. Multifocal capability greater than or equal to 4 read-write locations without crosstalk. Okay, and crosstalk means a crossing of the signals. Okay, it's like interference. So one signal doesn't leak into the other signal, causing what is called crosstalk. Okay, minutely invasive neural interface. Objective, create a minutely invasive read-write system. Phase 1, develop subcomponent and neurotransducers. I'm not going to go through all of this. I got to get to the other topics. Phase 2, integrate and validate in vivo. Phase 3, refine and demonstrate. Okay, so you guys can pause this to read this. Also, you can find this document online. It's called 2 Edmund Presentation PDF version. Okay, deliverable, high spatial-temporal resolution bidirectional system demonstrated in animals and humans. Please, about to say DAPA. TA2, minutely invasive metrics. Phase 1, subcomponent and transducers. Phase 2, integrated device. Phase 3, final system. N3, notational system. Nano transducers. Integrated device. Processing unit. N3, program structure and milestone. Okay, you guys can read that. You can pause the video to read that, and technical description to include in the protocol. Okay, teaming. And you guys can pause this. Okay, so that was the DARPA N3 presentation. Okay, and this is the program for and the creation and development of non-surgical neurotechnology. But we know they've created, okay? ReSTIs are proof, as well as we are victims of these types of non-consensual human experimentation involving these technologies, or developing technologies. Okay? So this is what they want to hide. This is one of the program of non-consensual human experimentation that has been and continue to be done. Move the mic closer. I just had to move. And so now, how do they intend on getting away with it? How do they intend on silencing victims who will come into the realization, into the awareness of what is happening, and is going to be looking for answers? Because you see, you need to shut them up, right? You need to put them in positions through manipulations, covert drugging, using other programs in order to silence them, discredit them, incarcerate them, institutionalize them, destroy their lives, so that no one will believe, no one will look into their claim, and people will just pass it off as, these people have a string of bad luck, or they did this to themselves, or what have you. And they're responsible, right? Now, in some situations, some circumstance, that's true. Some people put themselves in certain positions. I'm sure I have. I'm sure we all have. But when it comes to this, what's happening to us as the STIs, we have been put into this position. There's nothing that we did say that would attribute it to us being put in these type of programs, right? Because you are selected. You are selected, and from you are selected, the outcome has already been set. Hence, where I will talk about free will, but we're not going to get into that right now. Okay, so let's go into. Let's see here. I got a lot of documents, so I got to make sure that I'm getting into the right one. Okay, so I talked about, as I just talked about, right? Being put into certain situations and how you're being manipulated. So there's an article. It asks a question: can we control other people's brain? Let me okay. So, can we control other people's brain? Magic shows, hypnosis, and neurologists have at least one thing in common. Both spend a lot of time trying to learn more about how to control the brain. For hypnosis, the difficult task involve medallions and soft spoken command, but neurologists require some pretty mind-blowing technology. A recent question: can we control others people's brains? And it says, listen to this question. Your World Radio report produced by the Science Museum of Virginia to find out. Okay, and this document, you guys can see the link, I hope. Let me make sure. No. Okay, let's do this. Well, you guys can search the article name, okay? It's there, as you guys can see. I don't want to start messing with this sudden. But anyway, throughout recorded history, the ability to control others' mind has been documented as part of religion or culture at large. Some of the easiest examples includes procedures for reforming prisoners, the use of propaganda on the public, and sometimes even by means of torture. Once the widespread use of scientific thinking in the medical world began, we quickly saw a myriad of technological leaps, which eventually lead to things like the use of X rays, MRI scans, and more recently, now listen to this now, using bacteria to alter brain chemistry. As humanity use of technology progresses, we continue to see newer and newer ideas being put on the table, and this most recent one is especially mind-blowing. Using an optofluidic implant, scientists, listen to this, have been able to administer pulse simulation an injection of drugs into the brain by means of a remote control signal from about 3 feet away from the subject. This creation is pretty impressive despite its tiny size, only about a tenth the diameter of a human hair. This is largely possible due to the many disciplines that had to work in tandem to allow for all the elements to exist together. Years of work on nanotechnology, chemistry, neurology, engineering, material science, and many more sciences occasionally accumulate to do something this impressive. So, how is it that these implants, right? How is it that they make its way into the brain without the defense mechanism of the brain attacking it? Okay, I'm not going to talk about that now, but you guys should look up that question, right? Look up ways scientists use to introduce bacteria and other viruses into the brain without the brain defense mechanism attacking those foreign substances. These tests, as invasive as they sound, are a better understanding in which part of the brain serves which function. As of now, the human brain still remains very large. It remains a very large mystery. Not really. See, this is what they see. They always give you a little bit of truth or truth with misinformation and basically hiding the progress that science has achieved. Okay? So don't believe that. Because from the 1950s, the mid 1950s, they were using electrode implants as well as radio microwave frequency in their attempt to control the human mind. So don't be fooled. Okay? Now, just want people to just to think about this stuff. Okay? All right. So, being that I just mentioned about how they try to they'll give some truth, but then they'll do disinformation to kind of throw you off. It's kind of what they kind of what like double speak. So they're telling you that they can inject a substance into you to control your brain, and then they talk about how the human brain is still a mystery. I understand how these things work, right? One is meant to get you curious, and the other is meant to neutralize your curiosity. Okay? Um okay, so this document is called Mind Control Experiments on Children. And it talks about how the CIA used still do children as part of a tactic and weapon um, capability using children. And you guys should really uh, read this. Let's see if I have the. Just give me a sec. Okay, let's go back to. Let's go back here. Same document, except this one thing. This one provide a little more detail in terms of what I just showed you. Now I want you to listen to this. See, I was reading through this. I was like, oh, okay, this is what they were trying to do. Okay. Um, where was I? So if you could imagine life as a kind of hourglass and they fall apart through the top and through the skinny part at the bottom, and they see that as being a form of living, and they take their sensation and their thrills from some sort of upside down version of life. I wanted to paint that little sketch before I started because we are going to get into some pretty strange territory here. And I want to say that I think this is basically what is going on. It's important to know that these people occupy key positions in our government and still do. And they are not accountable. It tells you something about what is called a democracy. I have brought some testimonies together into this book called U.S. Mind Control Experiment on Children. It is a compilation basically of testimonies that was given in Washington before I read it from what I from from it while I, I still can't remember. I want to make a few announcements, a little bit about myself and the people who are here tonight. This is Deep River Books. She who remembers is taping this talk. The tape is available afterwards. Okay. So this investigative report on this um, talk about this book, and it talks about the testimony of people who started to remember about the experiment as children and how children as young as 7, well, actually 4, 7 years old, they were tortured by the CIA and the military. And also that, but they were also used as sex objects and sex slaves in order for the CIA and the military, the Department of Health, I would say, also, because all these government agencies, you talk about hospitals, the Department of Health engaging in some of these experiments, as well as the FBI. Okay? So, one of the interesting things that I read is that how these kids were used to entrap uh, certain people, okay, and also children as young as 11, 12, 13, teenagers. Okay, so if they wanted to target someone to destroy someone's career, they will train these, get the best of these kids, train them in the art of seduction, how to drug someone, and put those people in compromising positions. That way they can blackmail them and have them in their pockets. You guys should read the stuff. I mean, we are ignorant to a lot of stuff that had happened in the past. They have tried to erase these things, destroy documents, but some documents survive. And if you're not angry, you haven't grasped the gravity of what was done. Okay? So, you can find this document in at archive.org. It's called Mind Control, talk by investigative journalist John Rappaport. Okay, the CIA mind control and children. Now, how many of you know that the FBI can recruit children? Okay, and they're being paid very well with the permission of the parents. And of course, the parents get the money too. So, you guys can find those documents online with detail a lot of this stuff. So they still do it. They still do it. Okay. And a lot of that also ties into COINTELPRO, Zoom, which I'm going to get into right now. Let's talk about Zoom. Let's go here. Wikipedia. Okay. Zoom, German for decomposition and disruption, was a psychological warfare technique used by the Ministry for State Security, Stasi, to repress political opponent in East Germany. But it wasn't just political opponent. Okay, and you'll see when I read from the other article. In East Germany during the 1970s and 1980s, Zoom served to combat alleged and actual dissidents through covert means, using secret methods of abusive control and psychological manipulation to prevent anti-government activity. People were commonly targeted on a preventative basis for political incorrect activities they may have gone on to perform, and not on the basis of crimes they had actually committed. The Zoom method was designed to break down, undermine, paralyze people behind a facade of social normality in a form of silent repression. Oh, you just hear the knock? You hear the knock? Listen. Right? Silent repression, yeah. Upstairs, but as soon as I said that word. Okay? The use of Zoom is well documented due to Stasi file published after the Berlin Wall fell, with several thousands, up to 10,000 individuals estimated to have been to have become victims, 5,000 of whom sustained irreversible damage. Special pension for restitution have been created, called for Zertsuzum victims. So let's look at the individual use and how they use it against individuals. Okay? So, and you hear the police siren when I talk about, when I said individuals. And let me just do the sound effect. All right, so as soon as I said individuals, heard that. Very low, again, and very short. The Stasi applied Zertsuzum before, during, after, or instead of incarcerating the targeted individual. The implementation of Zertsuzum, euphemistically called Operativer Vorgang, operational procedure, generally did not aim to gather evidence against the target in order to initiate criminal proceeding. Rather, the Stasi considered Zertsuzum as a separate measure to be used when officially judiciary procedures were undesirable for political reasons, such as the international image of the GDR. However, in certain cases, the Stasi did attempt to entrap individuals, as for example, in the case of Wolf Berman. The Stasi set him up with minors, hoping they could then pursue criminal charges. The crimes targeted for such entrapment were non-political, such as drug possession, trafficking, theft, financial fraud, and rape. Directive 176 lists the following as tried and tested forms of Zertsuzum, among others: a systematic degradation of reputation, image, and prestige on the basis of true, verifiable, and discredited information, together with untrue, credible, irrefutable, and thus also discredited information. A systematic engineering of social and political, and professional failures to undermine the self-confidence of individuals, enduring of doubts. You gotta excuse me again. You know, when you're being under heavy remote neural monitor, your words, they're not coming out correctly. Your words are slurred. You know, it is some of the symptoms of this. So, enduring of doubts regarding future prospect, engendering of mistrust and mutual suspicion within groups, interrupting, respectively, impeding the mutual relations within a group in space or time. For example, by assigning geographically distant workplace, Directive number 1/76 of January 1976 for the development of operational procedures, beginning with intelligence obtained by espionage. The Stasi established socialgram and psychogram, which it applies for a psychological forms of Zerstezum. They exploited personal traits such, such as homosexuality, as well as supposed character weaknesses of the targeted individual. For example, a personal failure, negligence of parental duties, pornographic interests, divorce, alcoholism, dependence on medication, criminal tendencies, passion for a collection or a game, or contacts with circles of the extreme right, or even the veil of shame from the rumors poured out upon one's circle of acquaintances. From the point of view of the Stasis, the measures were the most fruitful when they were applied in connection with a personality. All schematism had to be avoided. Tactics and methods employed on the Zerstezum generally involve the disruption of the victim's private or family life. This often includes psychological attacks in a form of gaslighting. Other practices include property damage, sabotage of cause, purposely incorrect medical treatment, smeared campaign, concluding sending falsified, compromising photos or documents to the victim's family, denunciation, provocation, psychological warfare, psychological subversion, wiretapping, and bugging. It has not been definitely established that the Stasi used X-ray to provide long-term health problems in its opponent. That said, Rudolf Bathrow, Göring, Pinache, and Jürgen Fuchs, three important dissidents who had been imprisoned at the same time, died of cancer within an interval of 2 years. A study by the Federal Commission for the Records of the State Security Service from the former GDR has been imprisoned at the same time, died of cancer within an interval of 2 years. Okay, I read that. So a study such and such has meanwhile rejected on the base of extant documents such as fraudulent use of X-ray and only mention isolated and unintentional cases of the harmful use of sources of radiation. For example, a marked document. In the name of the target, the Stasi made little announcement, ordered product, and made emergency calls to terrorize them, to threaten or intimidate or cause psychosis. The Stasi assured itself of access to the target's living quarters and left visible trace of his presence by adding, removing, and modifying objects such as the socks of one drawer or the altering of time when an alarm clock has been set to go off. Okay? So, this is just to give you an example of what it is that they do to individuals. And most of these things have been done to us TIs. We talked about these things all the time. It is a way to silence us, to discredit us. Okay? And let's talk about the other aspect of this program, this the psychological, the psyops, to discredit us, to institutionalize us, to marginalize us, to the use of psychiatry to label us, to take away our ability to care for ourselves, okay? And the use of psychiatry to back that up. All right? So, COINTELPRO. Get a call honking. Tell you, whenever I hit certain gems, I'm surprised it's not sirens, but it's called honking. Call honking. COINTELPRO. Okay? This is from a document that I have. Let me see if I can zoom that up a little bit. Okay. This document, okay, you can find online. It's called COINTELPRO.s PDF. Okay. And it talks about how the FBI wanted to also link the NAACP to the Communist Party, right? This was in 1954, right? And this is going to lead up to today in this modern times, okay? So, because again, I want you to show you what they do, how they would label black activists and try to associate them with other groups that they have no association with. These are tried and true tactics that they've used in the past, and they still do it today. Okay? So it says, notwithstanding its tangible lack of success in linking the NAACP to the CP or any other foreign dominated organization, the FBI lobbied to have it included amongst the group covered by the Communist Control Act of 1954 and a cluster of corresponding state laws. Only a series of Supreme Court decisions prevented the entire NAACP membership from being forced to register as subversives or going to prison for refusing to do so. Meanwhile, the Bureau also began to focus its attention upon the recently informed Southern Christian Leadership Conference, right, the SCLC, an entire reformist and philosophical nonviolent black civil rights advocacy organization established in 1957 by the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and several dozen other Southern black ministers. And we all know about, the FBI sending letters to King, Dr. King, telling him he should hang himself and how he's a cheater and all this stuff, right? The same tactics they use on me, right? Except for, I'm not married, but I know they've told Pam certain things, okay? Just, again, over the years, how she's interacted with me, okay? And I'll give you an example, and then I'm going to go back further. Then this was happened in 1999, okay? And at the time, too, I didn't really think about this stuff. So when my second son was born, I wasn't there for his birth, dealing with my target and all this stuff. And I had stopped talking to her because, again, I was being targeted and, just wasn't in my right mind. So, but I went to visit her after he was born. And I remember, just talking to her. I said, listen, though we're not in a relationship, what have you, I'm going to take care of my son. And I gave her a check. Right. And I told her, I said, every 2 weeks, I'm going to give you a check. And I've done that. Okay. So then she gave him her last name. And then after we kind of worked things out, we went back to do a name change, right? Because you allow a name change, right? So we did the name change, fill out the form, get everything notarized, brought it to the hospital. Okay. When his new birth certificate came, they never changed the name, his last name. They never changed it. Okay. Again, it was done purposely. Now, I remember when I went to meet her to take the documents to the hospital, got to meet at the block the hospital was on. This was NYU in Manhattan. When I approached her, when she looked at me, her eyes watered up. Okay. And I didn't think about it then, but with my targeting that was happening, I was like, he would say, there was a lot of shit that I should have paid attention to that I didn't. But again, that's no fault of my own, because when you're targeted, you're very confused, and you're not thinking about certain things in a rational manner, right? It's to get your mind to think irrationally and act irrationally, right? In ways that is detrimental to yourself and to the people around you. But I remember in 1999, okay, I was living on my own. I had just gotten out of a long-term relationship, and I finally found an apartment, and I was dating this young woman that I knew from high school. And I remember she came over one day, and she had that same look in her face. She looked at me, her eyes watered up, and I said, "Hey, are you okay?" And she was like, "I'm fine," just like that. So I didn't really put anything. I couldn't put two and two together, because again, I was totally oblivious. Didn't really truly understand what was happening and what had happened. But now I do. Okay. So, there's certain memories that they don't want you to have, and there's certain memories that which they have put into your mind that they want you to have. Because remember, they can also create false memories. Okay? So, anyway, I was reading a part of this just to bring us up to date on what is this here? Okay, that's what I just read. Hold on, I have another other documents that I have, and I need to find the right one. I should have put it close together. Okay, let me close that one. Let me close that one. Where we at here? Here. Okay, here we go. So this is a book written by a former undercover FBI agent. It's called Disrupt, Discredit, and Divide. Okay? How the new FBI damages democracy. Now, if you think that the FBI has changed its ways, its tactics when it comes to dealing with certain groups of people, you're sadly mistaken. Okay? They know how to play the both sides. They know how to manipulate the public. Okay? So, this is Mike German, who is a former FBI agent. Let's get to here. Here we go. Criminalizing Black identity. Okay? There is no doubt it was terrorism. That's what FBI Director James Comey said when a troubled recluse named Zale Thompson attacked four New York City Police Department officers with a hatchet in October 2014 after immersing himself in a toxic mix of Al Qaeda, ISIL, black separatists, and anti government propaganda. Less than a year later, when another angry misfit named Dylan Roof murdered nine people at the Mother Emanuel African Methodist Episcopal Church in Charleston, South Carolina. Excuse me for the pauses. I gotta, you know, if I speak too fast, my words become slur. Cromney refused to call it terrorism. I don't see it as a political act, he said. That Thompson was a black man convert while Roof was a white racist appeared to be the determined factor in applying the terrorist label. Roof attack was more deliberate and deadly and more obvious an act of terrorism as defined by federal law. Roof told one victim he would let her live so she could tell others what he did, indicating his intention to intimidate a broader civilian audience. Roof also specifically targeted a state legislator, the Reverend Clemente Pitney. Yet even the discovery of Roof manifesto, I know as I said the word Pitney, right, is the car honk again. Now, in the Caribbean, sometimes we call kids Pickney. I used to say, if you're Jamaican, you'd be like, go take care of your Pickney. If you're from other Caribbean islands, Trinidad, Barbados, Grenada, who else? St. Kitts, other Caribbean island, we say Pitney also. Well, we with our own perspective accent. Okay, so yet even the discovery of Roof manifesto declaring his intention to start a race war failed to convince Cromie the attack was significantly political to be considered terrorism. Thompson, on the other hand, published no manifesto, leaving his intention unclear. He had been kicked out of the Navy for drug use, had a history of arrests for assault and domestic violence, and was unemployed and depressed, according to relatives. But his alleged searches of a hodgepodge of anti-government website were enough to convince Cromie that he sought inspiration from foreign sources like ISIL and that its slick propaganda played a role. Now, again, I just talked about how they will try to associate, particularly when it comes to black people, black men in particular, whether you're a civil rights activist or you're just, person having a really rough time, you could be having a mental issue, what have you, that they will create associations with other things that doesn't apply to those individuals or that group, right? Whether it be a political group, activist group, they love to, like I said, do projection. And in these cases where it's the FBI, they will document it because, again, they are one of the top law enforcement agencies, right? So the NYPD, like Cromie, mentioned Thompson's interest in black separatist and anti-police website, but emphasized his searches for jihadist material. Neither ISIL nor Al Qaeda assisted in Thompson's attack, and neither group could have claimed political advantage from it, absent the FBI's and NYPD eagerness to publicly credit them. The act's attack fit the profile of an ISIL inspired homegrown violent extremist that the FBI have been promoting for weeks. Okay, we all know it's black identity extremists. Okay, but they don't call the KKK white identity extremists. They don't call the Proud Boys white identity extremists. They don't call other groups white identity extremists. Okay? And they definitely don't call them terrorist groups. Though their intent, their creation and their intent is to terrorize. But to terrorize who? Black people. So therefore, they are not a terrorist group. Okay? Now, what does this have to do with what I also have been reading, the TI's? Black people are targeted individuals. And that's why it's shocking to me when I'm no longer shocked by it, but I was, that black people will participate in this. And you see, this is why I always say, because they're so Christian, yeah, but it's their God that sent me to expose their behinds, to let them know how ignorant they are. And they need to start thinking critically. Because it could be their sons, their daughters, their loved ones, that could be next. But studying psychology, you'll understand that sometimes the victims of, these cults and of traumatic events will have sympathy with their oppressors and will begin to adapt their oppressors' ways going forward and passing it down to generations of their lineage. Okay? So, an FBI DHS Joint Intelligence Bulletin issued on October 11, 2014 warned that ISIL supporters were using social media to urge HVEs to attack police officers in retaliation for the U.S. bombing campaign in Iraq and Syria that had started a few months earlier. So it was strange to see Thompson's name resurface in 2017 when Foreign Policy published an FBI intelligence assessment warning about the threat from black identity extremists. Now, there have never been black identity extremists in the United States. Okay? The Black Panther Party was not a black identity extremist group. The MOVE organization was not a black identity extremist group. Okay? They didn't go around lynching white people. They didn't go around throwing Molotov cocktails into the homes of white families. They were about self-defense and improvement for black people. Okay? And you got to understand and remember that a lot of their social programs, the U.S. government did what? Adopted. Okay? Meals for the elderly, the free school lunch program. That was all Black Panther Party. Women holding positions in managerial positions. A woman having managerial positions. Okay? That was the Black Panther Party. They were more feminist than these so-called feminists. Okay? The BIE assessment described Thompson attack without mention of ISIL or jihadist websites and instead focus on tattoos and pocket litter. So again, see, this is what they do. They will always change and shift to create new narratives to suit their agenda. This is why as TIs, when you're constantly thinking that, okay, I've confronted that, they can't use that anymore. No, they just move on to another tactic, another method. They change it to benefit them. But then a couple years later, they will come back and use the very same methods and tactics that you've, call them out on. Okay? Because see, they understand the broader aspect of this program and how they can how they have conditioned into the minds of people short-term memory, meaning that there's certain things that you're just not going to remember. Okay. And pocket litter that indicate his affiliation with black separatist extremist group, like the FBI 2014 warning about ISIL sympathizing HVEs, and that's homegrown violence extremists. But we know that the people who are more homegrown violent extremists are young white males. The 2017 BIE assessment focused on the threat this new movement posed to law enforcement rather than to the general public. Okay? Telling you. So, again, what they will do, especially as TIs, is that they try to radicalize us. Okay, and this is not other groups that's doing this. This is the U.S. government, its security agencies, and its law enforcement agencies. Okay? And then they will show up with someone who will show you a weapon so that you can buy it, or will leave a weapon somewhere and they will send you a command to go to a certain place and you will find a weapon or something like that. Understand what it is that they're doing. And so when you start to think like that, that's not you. That is being put into your mind by an external source. And this will usually happen when they start attacking you psychologically. They run their psyops to get you angry and you're pissed off. See, they're very good at emotional manipulation. And particularly when the technology they use can activate and deactivate your emotions on the fly, you become a very easy target. You see, because they already know the agenda. Every path you take, it doesn't matter. It's going to end up to whatever they want you to end up at. The only way you can combat it is hopefully that you may come on to certain information and you become curious and your mind start to open up, so you start to do the research, and it's through doing those research you understand. So even when they try to attack you emotionally and try to get you emotional aroused, your anger and stuff like that, that you can combat those things. You can create a defense mechanism, right? Psychologically, in terms of the psyops being done. But in terms of the technology being used, you can't combat that. There's, you should guys go read Mind Has No Firewall. As a matter of fact, I have it up here, all right? By Timothy Thomas. This came out in spring 1998. Okay? The human body, much like a computer, contains myriad data processors. They include, but are not limited to, chemical, electrical activity of the brain, heart, and peripheral nervous system. The signals sent from the cortex region of the brain to other parts of our body, the tiny hair cells, in the inner ear that produce auditory signals, and the light sensitive retina and cornea of the eyes that process visual activity. We are on the threshold of an area in which these data processes of the human body may be manipulated or debilitated. Examples of unplanned attack on the body's data processing capabilities as well it are well documented. Strobe lights have been known to cause epileptic seizures. Not long ago in Japan, children watching television cartoons were subject to pulsating light that caused seizures in some and made others very sick. Defendant friendly and targeting adversary data processing capabilities of the body appears to be unaware of weakness in the U.S. approach for to information uh, warfare theory. The theory oriented heavily towards system data processing and designed to attain information dominance on the battlefield, or so it would appear from information in the open, unclassified press. This U.S. shortcoming may be a serious one since the capabilities to alter the data processing system of the body already exist. A recent edition of U.S. News and World Report highlighted several of these wonder weapon acoustic microwave lasers and note that scientists are searching the electromagnetic and sonic spectrum for wavelength that can affect human behavior. And he talks about the Russians and stuff like that. But there's documents that you can find online, okay, that talks about this stuff, that give you a more in-depth, as a matter of fact, one of my favorites from the CIA. This is declassified documents. Okay, where we at here is called is this it? Offensive human offensive control offensive behavior. It's not the one I wanted though. This one. Let me show you guys. Okay, let's okay, so this document, again, this is declassified in 2000. Okay, and program examines psychological control experiments in USSR. Text, and it says here, Moscow, can't even pronounce that name. I don't want to butcher it. Television First Program Network in Russian at 1920 GMT on 17 September in its Novosti newscast broadcast a 40-minute program entitled Black Box, dealing with the device and drug use in the former USSR to influence and bend the human brain. Okay, the program began with the presenter noting that apparently a program for implementing method of psychological influence was submitted to then Prime Minister Rykov in 1987. There were plans to use psychological influence for military and economic purposes. The program goes on to deal with the method of influencing people's physical and mental condition and exerting influence on the decision. The unidentified man comment on the work which was carried out to implement this program. He said that a commission consisting of 20 people were set up. There were 6 academians among them, and a scientific council led by academic Kolenikov. You know. Okay. So, well, he goes to say that the council did not make much headway in its work due to the fact that it was totally rejected by academic circle. There were similar programs in the Ukraine, led by academician Thevenov, whatever his name is, and in Moscow, led by Dr. Ernest such and such, right? Okay, which is what I wanted to read here. It says the Doctor of Technology, Valery Kayuka, the first interviewee identified by caption, emphasized that one must be very careful with these research programs until the world states reach more agreement, until an international legislation banning psychological and physical steering of intellect and influencing people. A moratorium on this groundwork is needed, he says. Instead of nuclear weapons, we will get a new form of weapons, a more frightening one which has a frightening name. It is called ecological pure weapons. Now, there is this organization, they're called the Center for Ecology or something like that. That organization still exists today, right? But that organization is a CIA front. Okay, now I got to find a document, but the CIA created an organization called the Center for Ecology, or the Research of Ecology, something like that. That organization is or was a CIA front. Okay. Yankru then says that influencing the human brain and subsequently genetics could be extremely dangerous. He then recalled cases of using drugs for political motive. The video shows footage of and information about the attempt of President Marcos, whatever, such and such. The interesting part that I always come to when it comes to this document, I wish I can never forget. Okay, now they talk about these biogenerators. Okay, and if you go on to read this document, it talks about the hypnobility of millions. And see, this is why there's pharmaceutical drugs in the water. Even the smallest amount would make you susceptible to being hypnotized. Therefore, these technologies makes it very easy to have mass control over people or to condition people. So in this extract right here, and this is what we see today here, that's happening today, right? And he says, it would be tempting to turn psychological weapons against one's own people and make millions of them forget about discontent with the system of social inequality, about the struggle for peace, and about their civil rights. Oppressed but joyful, fleeced by monopolies but content with everything. Wouldn't this be the ideal citizen from the point of view of the ruling circles in countries of the West? And then it goes on to say, this is what newspapers of ours wrote quite recently about MK Ultra, an ultra secret program of American intelligence which was aimed into turning people into zombies in masses. But we now know that we ourselves have not escaped such brainwashing. Okay? Stories about design bureau at which instruments have been developed for producing long distance effect on the human mind have begun to appear in the press. Among the mails that we've received from our readers have been a trickle of letters which mention individual brainwashing by mysterious psychological weapons. Now, many people will be like, oh, they're crazy, whatever, right? Okay. But again, it talks about here this professor at Moscow State Technical University, preparing materials and stuff like that, in terms of the question of protecting citizens against psychological terror, right? And it talks about how uh, that in on television um, stations, what have you, that it talked about adversely affecting human consciousness. Now, fast forward 1990s. Okay, not this one. Let me find. Ooh, where is it? Here we go. DoD intelligence agencies look at Russian mind control technology claim. FBI. Uh oh. Stop playing the Mockingjay song in the background. Got helicopters flying above now. Or is that a plane? It's a small plane. Small plane. But you stop playing the Mockingjay theme song. Okay. Federal, listen to this. Federal, and again, this is CIA declassified, right? Federal law enforcement officials considered testing a Russian scientist acoustic mind control device on cultist David Koresh a few weeks before the fiery uh, conflagration that killed the Branch Davidian leader and more than 70 of his followers in Waco, Texas, Defense Electronics have learned. In a series of closed meetings beginning March 17 in suburban Northern Virginia, Moscow Medical Academy FBI officials were briefed on the Russian decade-long research on a computerized acoustic device allegedly capable of implanting thoughts in a person's mind without that person being aware of the source of that thought. Okay, now if you're a TI, they should be very familiar with you. When you start to have like these double thoughts going on in your head, thoughts that you never had before, you start asking yourself questions: why am I thinking like this? Okay, they put you in certain situations in which they will nudge you or command you to do certain things. Don't let them fool you. Like Bob Marley said, don't let them fool you or even try to screw you. Okay? So, not going to get into much of this. And then, my twin brother who was targeted, he was always talking about how they were trying to create multiple personalities in his mind. And it Project Bluebird. This is psychiatrist Dr. Colin Ross. He did over 20 years of extensive research on the CIA mind control programs. And what he discovered, there were many, many programs, many universities involved, many doctors, nurses, uh, universities, private institutions. Okay. Like I said, I was watching uh, the interview with Method Man from the Wu-Tang Clan, and he talks about the record company RCA. I think it was RCA, and he said that when you talk about we know that the government was the one that was bringing drugs into our community, but he's like the record companies, they had other businesses, and some of these other businesses were creating weapons. Okay. So, uh, and he goes on to talk about. Let me just. I didn't read all of this because it's a pretty long PDF document. Okay. And he says that the CIA created Manchurian candidate is a fact. That's what he said. It is a fact. Okay? And this goes on to talk about how many Nazi scientists, doctors that the US brought over. Okay? And a few years later is when we start to see these sort of experimentations begin. It says Bluebird, okay, blows the whistle on extensive political abuse of psychiatry in North America in the second half of the 20th century. Many thousands of prisoners and mental patients were subjected to unethical mind control experiment by leading psychiatrists and medical schools. Organized academic psychiatry has never acknowledged this history. The network of mind control doctors involved in Bluebird has done a great deal of harm to the field of psychiatry and to psychiatric patients. My goal is to break the ugly silence. Okay? The participation of psychiatrists and medical schools in mind control research was not a matter of a few scattered doctors pursuing questionable lines of investigation. Rather, the mind control experimentation was systematic, organized, and involved many leading psychiatrists and medical schools. The mind control experiments were interwoven with radiation experiments and research on chemicals and biological weapons. They were funded by the CIA, Army, Navy, Air Force, and other agencies, including the Public Health Service and the Scottish Rite Foundation. The psychiatrists, psychologists, neurosurgeon, and other contractors conduct the work were embedded in a broad network of doctors. Much of the research was published in medical journals. The climate was permissive, supportive, and approving of mind control experiments. Okay, the work of the mind control doctors did not occur in a vacuum. The importation of Nazi doctors to the US through secret programs like Paperclip is part of the context. After the end of World War II, German scientists and technical experts were being held in detainment camp. The British, French, Americans, and Russians became embroiled in highly competitive recruiting effort to secure the service of these German specialists. The prospect of losing the industrial and scientific service of these German experts led to the creation of Project Paperclip. Okay? Now listen to this now. All right? Likewise, the Tuskegee syphilis studies help us understand how mind control experimentation was not only tolerated by medical professions, but published in peer-reviewed literature. The study started in Alabama in 1932. See, now this is where the number 32 comes into play for me. Okay? When I read this, I was like, oh, okay. I could be right, I could be wrong. I don't know. But I know when they start talking about number 32 with the associations, when I see this, I'm like, okay, what else is happening here? Okay? 399 illiterate, poor, rural black men with syphilis were recruited as subjects, along with 201 controlled without syphilis. The purpose of the study was to make sure that 399 men never got treatment. The subject and their families weren't told they had syphilis and didn't know it was treatable. They were told they had bad blood. Okay, and we all know during the time, also in the early 40s, here, penicillin could have cured it, but they withhold. And the only how they supposedly shut the studies down was in 1972. So the study was still going on until 1972. Okay? So, just wanted to put that in there. Just again, it's a lot of topics. I was trying to get into this, but I'm not going to get into this. This is called the physiology of hypnotic suggestibility. So all plays into us as being TIs. Okay. We you know we have to uh, expose this stuff, what's going on, and make people aware. Because not also that, but now, you know, you have, I'm not getting into it, but I want to mention this. Okay. But not because the Russians now, okay, are now using social media the same way the US use social media in other countries to do the same, is to destabilize the American people. And what they have done, the US and the Russian, particularly using social media, is to help create a large portion of society that have a that have mental illnesses, from whether it be delusional personality disorder to believe in certain things, and also to create multiple personalities. Okay. How Putin got into America's mind. He learned the art of destabilizing his opponent from the Stasi, East Germany secret police. Like I said, I'm here to expose everything in what they've been doing. Okay? And I will not rest until they are exposed. And hopefully, they will be held responsible for what they've done to us as TIs. But if history is any, anything to go by, they probably won't, because these people in these positions are rarely held accountable for the atrocities, for the crimes against humanity that they have done. Okay? And, that's why I had to include Zoom in there, because as TIs, this psychological aspect of our targeting, is based off, I just actually need to turn the mic off, is based off of Zoom. The covert drugging, the use of honey traps is part of Quinta Pro. And they both had the part of their program was to spread rumors, propaganda, lies, what have you. And when you look at the young black activists from the Black Panther movement that was killed, guess what? They had been drugged prior to them being killed, laying in their bed. Fred Hampton is a good example of what the FBI did, using the Chicago police and using informants. It was a young kid. They drugged him. And then lied, say that he was shooting at them. He was drugged. His pregnant girlfriend was lucky that she wasn't killed. They shot this kid laying in his bed sleeping, drugged. Anyway, all right, this document, this video is over 2 hours. I don't want to I didn't show the Putin document here. Here it is. How Putin got into America's mind. He learned the art of destabilization, his opponent from the Stasi, East German secret police. Okay. Don't think you're a TI that you have not been manipulated, particularly if you're religious TIs. You always talk about, oh, nobody can manipulate your mind except for God. You need to cut that bullshit out. Okay? Seriously. And I'm sorry for using the word bullshit, but I have to. what you need to do is educate yourself and understand what has been done to you and us as TIs. Okay? So anyway, I will speak to you guys again on the next target individual program, the next targeted individual video. Again, the brain chip as you see it here, if you're a TI, you have been microchipped. Okay? And they are going to do whatever to prevent the public from knowing what's going on. And if the public do know, it is and agree to go along, it is because of the villainization of you and I as TIs. You know, and they know how to manipulate people. They understand, particularly with religious people, they're very gullible, very easily influenced. Particularly when you use religion as a manipulative tool against them, that they will commit crimes in the name of their religion. Again, these are all proven facts. Nothing I say to you is my opinion. Okay? Well, I shouldn't say nothing, but you know, when I have an opinion of something, I'll document it. If it's on my experience personally, my videos is my documentation. Okay? All right. So you guys take care.